We'll start today's session with the refuge prayer, like we did in previous sessions also. And we'll work through a screen share. And like previous sessions, if it is interactive, it adds a lot more value than a monologue. And it helps me quite a bit if I hear people's views and I learn from them. So please help me learn. I'll start screen sharing. We'll do it 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I hope you're able to see my screen. So today's topic is a simple one if you look at it, but it's quite complicated for people who care to think a little deeper. So are you and I the same? Sometimes it's very, very easy to answer. Of course, we are not the same. What are you talking about? You are in Delhi, I'm in somewhere else. You are this age, I'm that age. Or you are this gender, I'm that gender, and stuff like that. So obviously, we are not the same. So what is this question? Right? But I have this irritating habit of not taking these face value answers as they are. As a student of philosophy, as well as a student of Nalanda tradition, we ask a little bit more deeper questions. And asking deeper questions also requires us to really understand the question very well. So when I look at this, I don't even know what you means or what I means. Or same is a difficult concept. Actually, it is a very difficult concept. And as we'll explore today, I guess most of us, certainly me, don't understand what the word same means. So we ask the question about the question first and see where it takes us. Many times the answer is hidden in the question itself. And maybe it's the way with this question. There are people who can build their whole, I guess, practice, at least the analytical part of the spiritual practice, based on one single question or based on one single kind of introspection or meditation, which takes them far if we care to dig deep enough. So let's see where this takes us. I'm not sure whether we can finish it within today's session. I hope we don't. I hope we participate quite a bit, and each slide takes us probably a day, but we'll see how it goes. So we'll explore what these words mean, the same, you and I, and then we'll see whether we can really answer this question or not. This question is actually inspired by a very simple looking quotation by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. And the quotation, and I'm sure most of you who follow His Holiness's teachings would have heard it. I am one of the 7 billion human beings alive today. Of course, it encourages us to be global citizens responsible for each other, for the environment, not to be too bound by the boundaries of the countries and the religions and whatnot. And a teacher a few years ago explained some different aspects of this statement to me too. And I'm very grateful to him. And I guess that's how today's talk is being kind of structured, to see whether we can look at different aspect of this statement too. What is His Holiness trying to do? Of course, he's trying to bring us to more universal responsibility, but what is his cognitive kind of outlook when he's saying these kind of things? Maybe that will shed some light on it. So we start by a little bit of kind of mental exercise. It's more for me than for you, I guess. And we'll ask very simple looking questions. And I hope you'll be able to kind of help me through these. And it's a very simple question. There are two circles on the slide. And here, tell me whether they are same or not. Anybody? They are the same? They are not the same.
Here.
Sorry?
You two circles, they're not even here.
Oh, they are not even here. But you see them, right? So when you see them, do you see them as same or different?
Different.
Different. Yeah, Rupesh?
Yeah.
Yeah. How are they different? So you probably think these are kiddies questions, and these are, I guess, in a way. But it'll probably also reveal to us how our mind works, yeah?
Yeah.
How are they different?
The characteristics defined by the color is different. Here, the two different colors.
Oh, they are different because they are two different colors, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything else? Yes, Nico.
They are different because I can point at two different things. There are different entities.
Ah, you are getting technical. Yes, these are two different entities. He can point to two different things there. So that's why they are different. Yeah, yeah. It's so easy to find differences. I guess it's a kind of a habituation in the kind of world that we live in. We are trained to find differences rather than we are trained to find samenesses among things. Because let's say I'm going to buy a toothpaste. All of them, in fact, are probably same. And then I look at, oh, what is the color of the, or is the, bristles, whether they're soft or not, and whether it's more expensive. This is 80 rupees, but the other is 100 rupees, and things like that. We are trained to go deeper and deeper into finding differences among things. If you're hiring some employee, you would want to, even if the qualification, they are the same university, same age, even then you look at, okay, this guy is more kind of more work oriented, this is more kind of fun oriented, this is more like sincere, but this is more intelligent, and we'll kind of categorize the people, and then we'll look at the differences and we'll choose. I'm not saying anything wrong about it. This is how the world functions. This is what our training is. We are overtrained in looking at differences, I guess. That's one of my observations, but you can differ, of course. Well, if I say they are the same, what would you say? I'm wrong, right? Well, they are same because these are two circles. What do you say in response to that? So here is a response that they say, oh, just being similar in being circle doesn't amount to being same. That's what you're saying. Very good. Well, they're on the same page. They're same in being on the same page, on the same computer. Yeah? Aren't they the same? These are similarities. That doesn't make them the same.
There's very distinct feature there.
So let me throw your question back to you. Does one difference make them different then? If one similarity doesn't make them same, does one difference make them different? How do you respond to that? It's a convention. He's trained in Buddhist thought. Yes, yes, yes. And we'll talk about conventions. Yes. Would you say it is a convention to call them different? I see. But if they were the same, would it be a convention to call them the same? That too. So both are conventions. So that doesn't bring out any new information to us about these sameness or differences.
You can even have some perspective. If you look then from close or from far away,
Yeah.
maybe from far away they will look the same.
And from far away, yeah, they will look probably like two dots somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So at least from this discussion on this page, we know that some things look more different to us than they look same. Although some characteristics of similarity and some characteristics of differences are there, we tend to qualify them as different because of our maybe habituation or training, or because that's the world thinks correct way of saying it. How about this one then? Are they the same or different?
Now the object is same.
The object is same?
Yes.
Who is that? Sorry, I can't see the name on the screen.
Rupesh here.
Hi, Rupesh, yes. Well, how is it the same? I see two circles. How can two circles be same? I mean, they have, there
I
are two
would,
different places. They are different in
yeah,
that sense.
yeah, I would rather
Yes,
say they
Praveen.
are two different. Yeah, I would say that they are two different objects with the similar characteristics in a physical world. I mean, in as per our general understanding, they have same characteristics or attributes, but they are two different objects.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you were to go and buy them at a shop and shopkeeper says they are the same and you need to pay the same price for both of these, you would agree with him, right?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, definitely.
So when the shopkeeper says, no, they're the same, sir, you have to pay the same $100 for it, you would agree with him they are the same.
It all depends how we are measuring it, how we are seeing it.
Yeah, hold that thought. That's very important. So here again, many of us will, and I guess rightly, would say they are the same because they look the same, they are the same size, they are same page, they are, yeah, they're the same. If you're saying different, how are they different? And they'll fight. If two kids were to, this good way to look at the world is to, I guess, look from a kid's eye. When the questions are complicated, I find it very nice to just think of me as a kid and kind of answer it like a 5-year-old would answer, because that's not over analyzed. That's, I guess, speaks of the how we are taught about our conventions. And I'm not saying conventions are right or wrong. It just says how we perceive the world without judging right or wrong there, right? So a kid would say, oh yes, uncle, they are the same. What are you talking about? Right? Right. But if you analyze more, of course, we'll say because they are at two different locations, they have to be two different things. By the way, I mentioned one in brackets and many in brackets, two different. Now, this one and many are kind of approximate, but not exact, philosophical or spiritual equivalents of our day-to-day words, like same and different, right? And we'll talk, so different is easy, same and one is a little bit more complicated. But for things to be different, they have to be many, right? You would agree. For a cup to be different from a plate, they have to be two things, a cup and a plate, right? They have to be many things for a difference to arise, right? Right. Similarly, many itself implies difference because they are multiple. Multiple means they are more than two. That means there are two different things there, right? It's not the one. The English phrase is very nice, one and the same. It includes one and sameness and same. It's not one and the same, right? If there are two things, they're not one and the same, never one and the same, right? if you look at very analytically about these things.
This
Would you like to speak a little louder so that people can, yeah.
No, so like you said, many itself is different, right? You said like a cup and a plate. So one difference is one is a cup and the other is a plate. The other difference could be their color, the other difference could. So you're saying in that way, it's the many characteristics itself is different, right?
Yeah, many objects to me implies, means that there are differences.
The differences.
If we can say there are two things, it's equivalent to saying there are two different things,
Two different things.
right? Because they are two,
They're two.
right? One and the same implies a thing. This is our technical, this is not so. We need to segregate like a kid, a 5-year-old, 10-year-old kid would respond,
Right.
and how a analytical, philosophical, spiritual explorer looking for wisdom of emptiness would explore things. Yeah.
Right.
So let's not mix and match. So the things that we're talking about, that for two things, they have to be two different things. That's a much more philosophical sense of it. In general, if we say to go to a market, like we're saying, and talk to a shopkeeper and say these are two different and I won't pay the same price for them, and say, well, then don't buy, just go look somewhere else, right? Because then we are going beyond a kind of a conventional or agreed upon ways of thinking about things. But philosophically speaking, really technically speaking, we would have to say, well, if there are two things, they have to be two different things.
Two different things. And if it's one, it's the same, right?
So one and the same. But let's see if it's really the
That's true.
case. Yeah. So let's go to next page. Hello. What about this then?
Check.
Is it one or many, or is like same or different?
Nothing to compare it with.
Yeah. So what's the answer?
It's one.
It's one. Or one and the same, or the
One
same.
and
Yeah.
the same.
I see only one object.
You see only one object. Are you stressing the see part, or the one part, or the object part?
Three of them.
Okay. Okay. How about you?
There's nothing to, it's not defined something to compare to. So technically there is, we are in presence of one object in this case.
Yeah. So it is one, yes, we'll all agree, and we'll probably be very inaccurate in our dealings with the world if we were to provide a different view of it and say, no, this is many, and we'll probably thrown out of the room. If you were to answer that to a teacher, and when you were in a school in the 5th grade or 6th grade, they'll say, no, this is one, this is not. How many things do you see? This one thing, of course, right? Naturally.
Yeah, I have a bit of a different opinion on this. So I think for
Yes, tell
that,
me.
for it to be compared, you have to define what exactly this object is. Is it the color? Is it the border radius? Is it the border? If you're looking at it in that way, then it's three different things. The color is one thing, the border is another thing, the border color is another thing, the radius is another thing. So we have to first have the definition of what is this, then have the mode to compare.
Yeah. But tell me, when you interact in day-to-day life, do you work with definitions of everything before you judge whether they are one or many?
I think it's conditioned. So like if we look at it the conditioned way based on societal constructs, I think it will be one, yeah.
Right, right. So that's the question. But I get your drift, and we are actually coming to that. Thank you for
Okay.
leading me, actually. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And actually, our brain is so programmed like that we see every object on this universe in our own experience and the exploration what we had in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
So
True.
making any sense here.
No, you are making good sense. You are all trained philosophers, it seems. So, right. So, like one of you were saying, I might claim, so there are two ways of, right? A kid's way and a philosopher's way. Let's try to segregate the two, yeah? And let's not confuse the two. At least we agree the kid would say it's one, right?
Yeah.
When I say kid's way, I'm talking about we are agreeing that at least it appears as one to us. It looks as if it is one. At least this much we can agree.
Yeah.
Right. Whether after analysis, like a philosopher, whether it is still one or different, one or many, that we need to explore. Yeah. But that this appears as one itself is a very, very valuable insight into how the world works. Yeah. World is constituted, I guess, of things which appear as one to us. One cup, one microphone, one watch, one table. And world is constituted of things. Sorry, I'm repeating myself, but it's, I think, very important to say that our cognition, our natural habitual cognition identifies things as one, and those those singular things are the constituents of our world. Philosophers, I guess, do not just take that as the statement of fact. When they analyze, and I think in Buddhist way of analyzing things, they would call it ultimate analysis. They want to really say, is it really one? I know it looks like one, but is it really one? They are not, when they say that, they are not denying it looking as one. They're asking, if I were to analyze it in a deeper way, does that view really still hold? Yeah. So there's a kind of a nuanced difference. When a philosopher would say, hypothetically speaking, that this is not one, this is different, these are many, at what level is he denying it not being one? At an analytical level, not at the appearance, how it is appearing to us. Yeah. So that's a distinction that we need to make. But anyway, let's move on. So I actually, like one of you were saying, like Rupesh was saying, I guess, it is probably two. What I did is I just took the boundary and the green, the infill separately. And you could easily argue that this one is actually two things. One is the green infill and the black boundary. You could say that. No, these are not one thing. These are two things. More correctly speaking, you would say this one thing is made up of these two things. It's like one, but two parts. Yeah. One with two parts. One, two parts. Then these two parts, we could go further and say, no, they are made of one. I don't know whether you can see the circle also. I tried to divide the boundary into four kind of thing. And I made kind of pizza of the green thingy here. An incorrect pizza. That's how I cut pizza. It's not really cut in the center, one of the lines. Yeah, so those things are also made of parts. And this is kind of a standard way, one of the most commonly understood way how Buddhist philosophers would argue about how the objects are made. So there are many combined together to form a one. Yeah. So differences combine, different things combined together to form something that appears as one to us. Right. Then within that, I don't know whether you have kind of gotten exposure to, within Buddhism, there are different schools. of thought, which have different kind of philosophical tenets about these things. So one of the schools would say, I don't want to be technical because I know it's kind of a walk-in kind of a thing. One of the schools would say that if you keep dividing the parts like that, there will be a stage when you will come to indivisible parts, that you can't divide them any further. And the world, so these are kind of atomic constituents of the world, and they come together and form our observed world. The fact that we don't see them doesn't take away their analytical access or analytical validation that it must be so, although our senses are tuned toward observing only single objects. But then other schools where they say that there is no such atom, that there is nothing which can't be divided further, right? And that's a strong breaking point. And that assertion forms one of the most, I guess, for me at least, easy to understand way to say why some schools in Buddhism would posit a certain very deep level of emptiness and a conventional reality. Since you've come so far, maybe we'll just talk about it for a minute and then move back to our kind of circles and sameness. So the arguments that these schools, which say that there can't be something which is not further divisible into parts, it means what? It means there is no analytical one that can be posited. Because any one, for example, this circle, any one that you would posit would always be further divisible into parts. So there is nothing one, because it's just a collection of parts. What does that even mean? We see one everywhere. There is a circle there. There is a cup here. And they're saying, no, we are not talking about what we are looking at, what we are observing, what our senses tell us in that sense. We are talking about analytically whether what is possible, what is not possible. That means a kind of fundamental analysis, which doesn't deny the appearances, which is a kind of hard to understand point in kind of Buddhist philosophy. But let's take this one step further then. What is many? We earlier said that many is coming together of ones, right? For example, a rosary or a mala is made up of coming together of beads. Those singular beads form a kind of a collection like a rosary or a mala. But if there are no ones, then many is not possible either, because those beads are not there. We can't find a bead. And in that sense, both one and many are analytically, in a fundamental analysis, are said to be non-existent. This is what we'll call space-like emptiness, I think. But then we go back and say, what was it, this green circle that I saw earlier then, if it is not there, if it's not analytically findable. And we'll still say, like we agreed, like a 5-year-old, that it is a circle. It is a thing. Having realized that in that analytical way, it's not even possible it to be here. And still agreeing that an appearance of it is there, that is a kind of the cognition imbued with these two things is what we roughly called illusion-like emptiness. This is what the Prasangika view of things is. I guess I would kind of digressed quite a bit, but since we're talking about one and many, I thought I'd give you an argument, which is one of the, I guess, popular 5 arguments which talk about emptiness. This is, I guess, called one and many argument about the entity of things. And then how it kind of comes back to a valid cognition of things as singular entities. They hold their own entities, what we call technically. And say the world is still valid because at a penis level, everything is working, everything is there. I can go to a shop and buy a cup, right? And the shopkeeper doesn't argue with me, no, it's not there because there are no parts there and things like that. We don't have to deal with that, right? And functions, it is, this cup has water in it. None of its parts could hold the water, I guess. If you were broken, you can see this cup, if it were broken, it won't hold water, but it's holding water, right? Is that also appearance? Yeah. Do you see it as appearance? No. Don't have that realization. It functions, there's water in it. It kind of quenches my thirst. Does that water have parts? Yes. Infinitesimally divisible parts? Yes. So it's not one? No. It can't be many then because it's not one. No, yeah, I agree with you. But still, there is water. We drink it. And it works. So it's a hard point to understand, I guess, but we digressed. We'll go back to the earlier point that some of you were so correctly saying that although technically one and many may be like this, philosophically speaking, there are many ways to talk about kind of whether they are same or not, whether these two are same or not, right?
Yeah, I have just one interesting point. I mean, since we are talking about these things over here. I mean, if we talk about the quantum physics, right, and we talk about the photons and the basic nature of photons, the duality of the photons, right, dual nature of photons. For example, everything is made up of photons only, and photons are having dual nature. I mean, they can sometimes they act as a particle, sometimes they act as a wave, which does not have any mass at all, right? So everything is made up of that, and somewhere it correlates with this philosophy. I feel, even though I need to have the clear understanding how actually it does, but has there any kind of research done in these areas that the philosophically or in Buddhism the way we talk about emptiness, and in quantum physics we talk about photons and their dual nature, where we say that they work as waves also and they work as a particle, and everything is made up of photons. So has there been some sort of research done in these areas? I was just curious. That's the reason I asked it.
There are people who wander along the same lines like you are doing. And I won't be surprised if there are people researching these things. The concept of there being very, very, very small, infinitesimally small particles is not only a Buddhist thought. In fact, it was prevalent in most of the other Indian schools of philosophy too. In fact, some Greeks also kind of posited these kind of things in those areas. Yeah. Um, and there is merit in exploring like that. If it gives us a sense of um, the kind of analytical view of life that we talked about, that although things appear like that, they are not like that. So to the extent that they question that 5-year-old or 10-year-old's view of what is under the skin of those appearances, they are very valuable, right? So yes, we should engage in those explorations and see whether they kind of loosen up our kind of very strong attachment to appearances as they are. In terms of the kind of fundamental analysis that we talked about, they are helpful, but maybe not to that great an extent. Because the search that we are doing is still an ontological search in sciences, most of it. Philosophy requires us to combine our perception and the things out there of them. Sciences, and I could be wrong, right? There are certain branches of sciences which question even this, but typical classic physics, for example, pre-Einstein, pre-Niels Bohr. Although I shouldn't really be saying that, because in Newton's, when he was writing in 16th or 17th century, he made a statement which is not talked about very much. He did say that I am assuming that what I'm observing is correct. What he was saying is that I'm assuming that there's no role for the mind to play in the sciences that he was asserting. Whereas Einstein and further quantum physics, etc., brought the subject into the discussion, and that's when it became very, very exciting. The philosophies that got developed, or the analytical part that got developed in Buddha's times, and the way people wondered about these things, I guess science is, or the quantum physics also, has not been or is not going, and that's not their agenda, I guess. That's not what they're after anyway, in that analytical bend of it. There are many things that we know just by analysis, whereas the sciences, given their agenda of empirical provability and things like that, not logical probability, but kind of empirical provability, and the credibility rests on it. So the complementary nature of these two is something that we need to explore more, I guess. And there's a, I guess, Science and Mind Institute that is working under the guidance of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which I think also explores these kind of topics. So we can, go deeper into that there. I guess it's a kind of a roundabout way to answer your question. And it displays more than my knowledge. So I apologize for that, but that's how it is.
No, sir, absolutely fine. I just wanted to know whether we are doing something around it, because I personally felt that we need to do something about it. I mean, this correlation and we could just get clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a student of science. I'm an engineer too, and kind of superficially studied. I can't say I studied physics very well. Superficially studied these subjects in college. Most of the practitioners, when even physics was not there, like 1,000 years ago, also 500 years ago, also 1,500, 2,000 years ago, also did achieve deepest levels of wisdom and insights and experiences of kind of emptiness and bodhicitta when the support of physics was not there, right? If sciences help us to deepen our understanding of these things, I think that's very, very valuable. Yeah. So in that sense, I go back to our earlier point that if you wonder whether there's really a substance out there, or whether it's all just waves or particles which behave in a dual nature, and things that we see, probably there's some room for doubt in how the appearances are. I think it has served quite a bit of purpose in loosening that thing. Yeah. You were saying something. No, it's a discussion. So you please jump in with the question. I mean, I'm happy.
Just like, talking to I was just about to, you were about to say something that I was very drawn to, and then
Okay. All right. Okay. I'll come back. I have a little bit of mindfulness, so I'll come back to that. So what we're saying is that we'll go back to a way of technical looking one and many, and then way of our day-to-day life of observing same and different. Yeah. And we talked about that objects are, some of the expressions in Buddhist philosophy are so mind-blowing, actually. One of the expressions is things are like heaps, like a heap of things just put together. Yeah. And those constituents of that heap are, of course, maybe if it is a physical object, the physical parts, and also the qualities of it. For example, it's heavy or light, or it's this color, that color, useful, not useful, food, not, whatever those qualities are, right? Like even people would say, okay, he's this race, that nationality, this gender, etc., etc. So things in that sense are like heaps. And our cognition of whether two things are same is just based on how many components of those two heaps look kind of similar to us. And then if they're, let's say, more similarities than differences, we'll say, oh, they are more or less same, or they are the same. And when we say they are different, we're saying that most of the qualities or the parts of these are different. So that's why we call it different. Nothing wrong with it, right? I just want to bring home the point that there is nothing absolutely same or absolutely different. We just need to find, if you are looking for sameness in things, we just need to find, and you'll be able to find at least one common quality in the most disparate things that you have seen, most different things that you've seen. At least one or two or few qualities you'll always be able to find if you open your mind to it. So it's just a matter of how you want to judge things. And that's the very critical point. There is, if you look at, no, they are absolutely the same, that's also wrong. If you look at absolutely different, that's also wrong. However, our day-to-day life observation is training us more to look at differences than samenesses. That's also, I think, we can easily find. Because in our work environment, to survive in our day-to-day lives, we are more accustomed to using this discriminatory power. Discriminatory not in the negative sense, I'm saying in terms of finding differences of the two, or many things.
It's a survival skill that was.
It's a survival
developed by the
exactly.
man to survive and to interact in the environment. So
Yes.
it's our instinct.
Exactly. So it's much more tuned toward finding differences. And that it's a sign of intelligence. I'm not saying it's something wrong. I mean, you should be able to find a wrong equation, mathematical equation, against the right mathematical equation, although it looks very similar. One formula, one sign here and there, it's all wrong, right? So just giving a very pedestrian example, but I mean, that's how things are. We should be able to judge what is right and what is wrong. And we are evaluated in our exams like that. We are evaluated in our work environments like that.
as somebody who's done in maths, that example suits me very well because to me it always looks the same. Always.
I pretend to be an engineer, but it's the same case for me too. Yeah. So, and that brings us to a kind of a main point here. We looked at the same and difference, and we'll come back to it after we are looked at other two terms used in the original question, which was, are you and I the same? So there are two other major terms in this, you and I, yeah? We'll just talk about those two also briefly, although we're kind of running out of time too, but let's see. We know the words here and there, and we use them kind of every day, I guess. And we seem to know what it means. So there are 5 of us here. Here in this room, it implies a room, an enclosure or a boundary, right? And when I say I am here, but he's there, that enclosure has changed. Now enclosure is like here, and that enclosure is right there. You see the fundamental fungibility of this enclosure. We are here in India. Most of us, I guess. I'm not sure. But some are not here in India. They are over there, overseas. Yeah. So, so it is so contextual. In philosophy, like we said, dependent origination, we say quite a bit in, at least in Buddhist philosophy. This here and there are also kind of dependent on each other. A there can exist only if there is a boundary that I've defined for here. Right? And one of the ways, there's a technical way of looking at what self or I is, but some of the great lamas and teachers in Nalanda University have kind of given something that resonates very well with me. They say I is probably, we can think of the person here. There's nothing more to it than a person which is sitting here, and you or he or she or they is person over there. So the boundary here is set in terms of, I guess, the aggregates, the body. And then things outside of it are called there in terms of person. So person there. If we go, I guess we don't have too much time today, but if we go deeper into it, this itself is a powerful kind of reflection to kind of loosen our sense of self. If you were to say the difference between me and Nico is just that the person here is called me and person over there is called Nico. That's all. That's all there is to it. Right? The kind of distances that we were thinking, the excess baggage of importance of I kind of gets evaporates just by saying that, oh, it's just talking about a place here and place there. It's like situational rather than anything kind of more heavily loaded fundamental facts about it or something like that. Right? Yeah. So of course, there's a more technical treatment of what self is, and Buddhist schools among themselves have differences about them. But I guess for today's discussion, just to kind of think that it is more kind of, one way to look at it is more kind of locational rather than anything much more heavier loaded than it, right? How does it help? I guess I am much more flexible with here and there than I am with I and you. Like we said, here I could flexibly say means this room without having any ego clashes with anything. I could say here means India. I could say here means Delhi or Tushita Center or anything without having too much of kind of emotional baggage with it. And I could say there is other than that. If the same cognition of non-baggage I could transfer into me as a person here, just a person here, it's like the cup here, really. And that cushion over there. There's a person here, like the cup here, and the person there, like the cushion there. If I could remove that emotional baggage, it's probably a good way to think of relativity of I and you. And we talked about that here and there are kind of dependent on each other. And that's why you can understand that for I to exist, you has to exist. And for you to exist, I has to exist, kind of a thing. Yeah. Next, then we'll go back to the that we talked about, that there's a excessive habituation to focusing on differences, which sometimes is useful. In fact, it can be argued mostly they are useful. But there are situations where it merits to focus on samenesses for our own happiness, I guess, for our own wisdom, I guess. And some of my interpretations of when we study philosophy is that some of our practices are actually underlying thing is like that. Even in bodhicitta practices or in practice of equanimity, when you're saying that we are all kind of human beings, we all have suffering, we all have potential for Buddhahood. We are equating, we are finding that commonality among us, right? And so just to get into it, how you and I are different. Let's go back to that 5-year-old, 10-year-old. How are we different, Nicola, you and I?
You are there, I'm here, for example.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. You probably have different food likings than I do. You certainly look different.
It's just relationships are just conflictual. It's just about ego and the self and money. So if there's no money to be made out of you, or to be gotten out of you, then we have nothing further to discuss. I've known people to be just as clear as that. I think there's nothing to. I don't even want to discuss, exchange pleasantries if this is not about money. If I can't wrangle money, what will be? So I just feel that sometimes philosophy, which is the thought that often comes to me, is so vacuous because it's inapplicable to everyday life. I don't know.
Oh, is it not?
Read.
That's a very important point, ma'am. And then that's a, yeah. Full of it. Full of it. So this person who you don't want to greet, let's see how different he or she is from you, yeah? So what is most important to you in life? I mean, you don't have to give personal answer, just like general.
I to attain an even keel of mind. That's what I want.
You want to attain, yes. Yes. Do you think he or she also wants to attain that even keel?
Ask people, ask Nico and others.
Yeah.
Do they want to attain equality?
Yeah.
I think most of us, yes.
Most of us want it. Great. Great. But there are people who don't even know what even keel means. Yeah. I don't think.
To attain it, very honest.
Yeah.
And I never get that, Lokesh. That's what keeps bringing me to this place. The desperate hope that someday
join the gang. But there are people who don't know what like balance of mind or even keel means, right? I mean, so I guess there are some people who kind of don't follow it.
It's what you say, that you're more or less sat an even keel, that you attained equanimity.
Oh, me personally? No,
Other
it's
people say,
it's very far. It's very far. Is there progress being made? I guess honestly, I can say some progress without quantifying it.
no,
Yes,
I
that's all.
feel nothing.
Probably you have. Probably you have. There is. I'm sure you have.
No, nothing. I feel completely different.
But going back to this person who you don't want to greet. Even keel is one thing, but is there something more important than even keel that you want?
It's
Anything more important than that?
the ability to handle stress.
Anything more important than that?
Yes. How do I combat stress? Let me ask you.
Anything more important than that? But let me finish my questions first. Do you think there is anything more important than that to you?
Yeah, I like to sleep. Check.
Yeah. Anything more important than that?
Health.
Yeah. More important?
I want it all stability. Please.
No, but more than that, health. What do you want? Something more. More important.
Then let's ask him. Has he attended?
Something more important than health?
At the moment, health, so it's all
Okay.
I'm thinking about what
I think health is important, but I think the most important thing probably I'm looking at is the ability to breathe.
Sorry.
Ability to breathe. I think health I can deal later. If I'm just holding my breath for 10 seconds, I need air first. We'll deal about health later. I think I value being alive. It's just that some of the things that we get easily, like being alive, I guess is easy without, I don't know whether it's easy or not, but I guess it's there. And air, thankfully, if it was not COVID times, oxygen was there. For many people who were struggling with oxygen, not availability in the hospitals at the time. But there's certain most important things that we all care about. And that's the sameness that I'm talking about here first. The most important event in my life is when I was born. And fortunately, everybody else was born too, who's alive today, or who's even dead. He or she was also born. While our day-to-day struggles, and like she was rightly saying, take our focus away from the fundamental samenesses that all of us share, there is undenying fact that probably 95% or 98%, 99.9% things that we really care about are common among us. It's just that our day-to-day life habituations don't allow us to see those samenesses, and we're just looking at difference. Oh, he's more rich, he's less rich. He's giving trouble, he's giving less trouble. Not the fact that, oh, he's also breathing, she's also breathing, I'm also breathing. In that sense, we are the same. We are the same kind of. The sameness is important in this kind of social context because when we belong to a group like a family or a friend, we share some common kind of characteristics or common ways of thinking or common time together. We develop affinity for it. And to be able to see samenesses means that we have heightened ability to be close to them. We have heightened ability to like them, to be able to see the samenesses among people, to empathize well, right? And this is when I want to ask, how different are we actually? Like saying we are very focused on finding differences through habituations, but let's step back a little. Are we really that different? Really? To me, we are not like this at all. To me, we are like this. You will struggle to find differences here. We struggle, right? Oh, we said, oh, no, but they are two places, two different places. But a kid would say, no, they're the same. In that sense, actually, we are not like this. We are like here. Of course, there are differences. I'm not denying the differences here. I'm just saying that there is too many of shared commonnesses, shared samenesses, that it is kind of delusional to focus too much on the differences. Differences are important, I guess. I'm not denying that. But really, are they that important? Are they more important than the 99% shared commonality that we have?
Education.
Yeah, please.
Define difference by defining a boundary.
Here and there, yes,
People
yes.
see a lot of difference. There are people who define a small boundary, strict boundary.
Exactly.
The way to find seamless is to grow this boundary.
Exactly.
So
How do you do that? So differences are like branching out, finding more and differences. You find two same things. No, they are still very different, than branch out still. And then in the branch out, there's more still branching out. It's like you're going and branching out in an infinitesimally complicated tree, going up and up. But you can do the opposite. Exactly your point. You can go to the mother branches, mother sub branches, then mother branches, then go to the main trunk, and hopefully to the root. It's like going this way or that way. Your choice.
The philosophy said there is no one roots and there is no infinity of differences.
In a fundamental analysis, in a very analytical way, we are going back to how we deal with the world. We are going back to that 5-year, 10-year-old boy's look of it, and how, if you go deeper, actually, you would say that even these differences, this going in, out, different sameness, are also neither same nor different. But we'll get, because it becomes very analytically complicated. So this is probably, we can deal with it in a different session maybe. But this is very valuable thought. We have a choice. And it's coming to that point, whether we want to branch out and keep focusing on differences, or whether we want to integrate, pull back, and look at commonnesses. That's a choice. We are trained in finding differences. That's true. Very, very trained. But can our practice be turned, especially in our relations, especially when we're dealing with minds, dealing with, do we care about animals? Do we care about our neighbors? Do we care about them? Then finding commonnesses gives us common ground to build that compassion or the care, right? I think we don't have too much of time, so I'll skip some of the technical matters of differences based on sameness and sameness based on differences. So, okay. So let's just talk briefly about them.
Very generous.
Sorry?
He's very kind.
Yeah, he is my role model. Isn't every difference based on an underlying sameness? What do you think about it?
There has to be a base. There has to be a same base.
Yeah. Can you give an example?
I'm looking at humans basically because we just talked about how we, deal with minds. So I was actually looking at the practical conversation in my head anyway. So, and I realized that, although I was looking at the differences in the conversation, that was making me agitated, that why the person is not getting what I'm saying. Now I realized that they were not hearing me because I was not hearing them. So it's more like there was a sameness and hence there was a difference.
Yeah. Very nice example. Anybody else? What do you think that this would mean?
you have to create category to be able to express difference. So, for example,
Exactly. You have very nice ways of to express technical matters. Yeah.
That's it.
you have to create category to make this principle of convention. You have to create convention of category to create difference. For example, gender. Now we are in the times when there is people who are challenging the gender category, and you have people who are not comfortable because they want to stick to the whole category. And we have people who are fighting around the definition of the sameness around this topic.
Yeah. A very simple example could be, for something to be different in color, a green and a blue, it has to be color in the first place.
Yes.
They have to share the characteristic of being a color before they could be green or blue.
The color is a change in frequency of light. It's not that's blue, that's green, because again, you have to define what you qualify as blue and green. It's not a discrete change, it's a continuous change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So in that sense, like every difference has to have a category, a mother category on which you then say that within this category, there are 2 things different, 10 things different, things like that. How would you reverse it? Same depend on differences too. Think about this: if there were no green and red or blue, would we even talk about colors? If there were no birds, would the concept of birds exist in our minds? If there were no eagle and sparrow and a parrot, would we still have the category bird in our cognition?
But we have dragons.
Yeah.
And fantastic
Because
animals
we wouldn't have
that
thought
do
of
not
dragons.
exist.
We wouldn't have thought of dragons if there were no real birds and snakes in the first place. Right? I'm not doubting our ability to imagine things where some of the basis is in our observed world. Yeah. So like that, but it was just a side point. The point I was trying to make here is that there is merit, at least in our social interactions, to be trying to get to the samenesses, the common characteristics that we all share as, I guess, not just human beings, but also as an animal. Humans are also animal. And not just as animal, but as living things, living beings. Yeah. And this is what His Holiness is doing. This now I am coming back to the original quote. When His Holiness, and this is an interpretation of one of my teachers, why is he saying 7 billion human beings and not, for example, kind of Tibetans, or not, for example, Buddhists, or why is he staying away from smaller categories and widened his circle of I or here or awareness to the greatest extent, biggest circle? It's because when he's practicing compassion based on cognizing people first as human beings, his compassion won't be weakened even when he cognizes that human being is, for example, a different country, an enemy country, or a non-Buddhist, or somebody who could be posited as His Holiness might not like them, although that such thing doesn't exist. So it's a kind of a training in seeing a commonality, a largest commonality of being humans. And we say, and he's saying, I am one of those 7 billion human beings. So that that compassion is anchored upon a cognition, which won't be shaken by any other characteristics of being human, because he's focused on the most fundamental sameness of the human race, that they are just human. Yeah. Any thoughts?
When you first showed this code, it really looked quite a general thing to say, but now I'm reading this and it's completely different.
Oh, thank you very much. Anybody would like to share comments or questions?
Maybe we are just talking about the humans, but if we look from the broader perspective, we can talk about all humans, like,
So I'm not able to hear you clearly. Would you
Yeah.
say it again, please?
Yes, sorry. What I'm trying to say is that herein we are talking about humans, but we look from the broader perspective, we talk about all living beings, right? All living beings
I wouldn't be
in the
surprised
universe.
if when his Holiness is saying 7 billion, he's probably thinking those trillion, zillion, whatever living beings.
Yes, yes.
But if he says that, then people get because this is tuned toward human audience. So he's probably saying that. But I wouldn't be surprised if his mind is cognizing the whole realm of living beings.
I can,
Anything else? Anybody else? I guess not then. I think we'll end today's session and do a little bit of dedication prayers. Thank you for listening.
Yesterday with a student, he really thought about, we were investigating the title of the discussion today. And so she was asking, what is the talk tomorrow about? And I said, the question is, are you and I the same? And she said, immediately she said, entity-wise, different for sure. And I said, are you really sure? because there are different ways of looking at it, right?
Yeah.
Like, for sure, Lokesh and Nico, different entities. But you and I, from your point of view, you are I and I am you, right?
Yeah.
From my point of view,
Exactly.
you are you and I am I. So can we also say entity-wise one, isolate-wise different?
No.
No.
If it's a technical question, no. But we can discuss about it because most of our audience don't know what we're talking about here. So there's no entailment.
Sorry?
There's no provision that if this is the case, then we are entity-wise one.
No, we are not entity-wise one, but like if you take Lokesh, Lokesh is I from his point of view, but he's you from my point of view. But we're still talking about Lokesh.
Yeah, it's bringing a very technical part. But it's not so technical actually. I guess we can all understand.
We use different words, maybe.
Yeah. What he's saying is that for me, this is I. For him, this is you. Therefore, I and you are actually exactly the same because both are here. It was just a perspective that was making this person as I in one case and you in the other case. The very valuable thought.
I will tease you. if you go in particle physics,
Yeah.
the scientists, they discovered that the fact to observe a phenomenon can change the outcome of the phenomenon.
Oh, yes, yes. This is the basic issue of all the quantum mechanics, right? It's an observation issue.
Yes, but that means that we cannot ignore the perspective of the observer to define an object or to define an actions.
Yes.
That's part of the definition of something. So in fact, we can be I and you at the same time. It's just a question of perspective.
Yes, yes. There are even more confusing things happening if you get into entanglement and getting in, like in physics entanglement, not in the entanglement in the general sense. Then yes, 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 yes. And I'm not qualified even to kind of talk about. You're reading a few articles in there doesn't make me a kind of a yeah.
It's where we go to this level of physics start to reach philosophy.
Yeah.
As a principle.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, but my point earlier was that this philosophy is not dependent on science for its provability. If science assists us in understanding, it's fine. If it gives some empirical basis of what we are asserting, it's fine. But it's not. I don't think there's dependence on it. Yeah, that's what I'm just trying to say.
So the answer to that question is, I think I missed that. Like in the answer, so is it the same? I and you are the same, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Depending on the perspective.
No, but the mistake of people who use science to deny philosophy is that they say if it's not proved by science, it does not exist. But it's not true. Yeah. Most of the people don't understand how engine works, and they all take a taxi or tuk-tuk to go to work.
Yeah.
That is not a problem. And it works.
Yeah.
Somebody does. Somebody, because it's something we created. But yeah.
Nicola, can we have that dedication? Yeah. Thank you.
I'm curious.
And again, you can skip the one above. You can skip this one.
Okay. Let's do dedication prayers. And someday we'll talk about why these motivation setting and dedications are so important. But today, let's just do them. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. To seal the merits with emptiness. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas and the numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of Vajrasattva, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state of Vajrasattva, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samanta Bhadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the three times in order to have good conduct. Thank you, everybody, for a wonderful session. Thank you.